From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. The Venezuelan foreign minister held a press conference at the United Nations where he condemned the U.S. government for waging an economic blockade against Venezuela while also pretending to provide aid.
The cost of this blockade is over $30 billion, and they are sending this so-called humanitarian aid for $20 million. So what is this? I'm choking you, I'm killing you, and then I'm giving you a cookie. So that's a show. And they have said it openly. They have said it's in order to prove the loyalty of the military in Venezuela. The loyalty of our armed forces has already been proved. The momentum of the coup that the government of the United States was promoting is over. It didn't happen. You have to rethink your strategy because Venezuela is a sovereign country.
Jorge Arreaza also warned the media not to support a military intervention through false media reports and said that the armed forces of Venezuela have proven their loyalty to President Maduro.
Ask the media, the agencies, not to get involved with this show, this spectacle that the U.S. is organizing. The U.S. have blocked our economy. The cost of this blockade is over $30 billion, and they are sending this so-called humanitarian aid for $20 million. So what is this? I'm choking you, I'm killing you.
Yeah. Finally, the foreign minister read a joint declaration made with a group of nations that are asking for a peaceful solution in the country.
We share the same interests and we will work to defend the following principles. 1. Respect for the principle of rights and self-determination of the peoples. Point 42 of the UN Charter. Second, the sovereignty of each state. Number 3, to promote peaceful solutions to international conflicts so as never to put in danger peace and security. Number 4, to abstain the use of force against any member state. Article 4.2 of the UN Charter. 5. Respect for the territorial integrity and political independence of all member states. And non-interference in the domestic affairs of member states. Point 7 of the UN Charter. We think that these principles are being threatened and the peace of our states is being put in danger, and we all have the right to live without the threat of the use of force or the imposition of unilateral coercive measures. In the coming days, we will take actions to increase general awareness of these principles and the situation of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We call on the United States government to join this defense of international principles for peaceful coexistence among humanity.
Venezuela's Prosecutor General Tarek William Saab has said his office has opened an investigation into those who have been illegally named heads of oil company CITGO. CITGO is majority owned by the country's state oil company PDVSA. Saab added they're investigating those who have been named foreign ambassadors by the opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido.
We have opened an investigation into the citizens who were illegally and unconstitutionally named chief executives of PDVSA and CITGO, and also against some citizens named as ambassadors in an illegal and unconstitutional move by someone who is an usurper of power.
And Venezuela's armed forces are deployed along the border with Colombia, performing military exercises to protect the nation against foreign threats. Madeline Garcia has more in this report.
Every corner of the border with Colombia has been reinforced by the military. This in response to threats of military intervention from the U.S. and its Colombian allies.
We are constantly patrolling here. There are 21 brigades. This is sacred land. This is the entrance to South America. And in this time of independence, we had to make a camp under military claims by the geographical location that we live in. And we also have natural resources. We have been blessed by God.
The troops are deployed. The military exercise Bicentenario of Angostura 2019 is safeguarding the border from war.
We are approaching the border, carrying out the exercises ordered by our constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the commander-in-chief of the Bolivarian Armed Forces. Our country is being threatened, and our commander-in-chief ordered these exercises to strengthen our preparation in the interest of the nation.
They are preparing for war, but also to defend peace. The border is very wide. Behind us is Colombia. We are pretty close. When the river is dry, we are just one step away. It's easy to come and go. Venezuela is alert. They are highly vigilant to stop any chances of foreign intervention.
That will be the worst threat. The military intervention that we will face in a conflict like this can end anywhere. We're asking for Venezuela's sovereignty to be respected, just like every country. Every government demands respect for their sovereignty and to solve their issues in a peaceful way under the self-determination principle of the people. We hope that all of this ends in a dialogue like the President has asked, a sincere dialogue with an open agenda, without incidents, without imperialist influence, and that allow us to solve the crisis that the Venezuela is in.
The armed forces join the people in calls for peace.
8 progressive political parties from 5 Latin American countries have rejected the U.S. attempts at intervention in Venezuela. In a shared statement, progressive parties from Chile, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, and Colombia called for dialogue and asked for peace in the region. They also criticized the Lima group, saying it ignores the people's right for self-determination. Meanwhile, Cuba's government has denounced U.S. deployments of special forces in parts of the Caribbean without consent. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez says this is part of the preparation for a potential military intervention in Venezuela. The island is calling on the international community to join forces and stop any kind of interference. The Russian government is also warning about U.S. plans to intervene in Venezuela.
A provocation, including with victims, is being prepared under the guise of a humanitarian convoy, and this is needed as a pretext for the use of force from the outside. This should all be clearly understood.
Our correspondent in Moscow, Hansel Loro, has the details.
Yes, the spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, told the media that the United States is using the so-called humanitarian aid arriving in Cucuta on the Colombian border as a pretext for military intervention in Venezuela. Zakharova said this could lead to the loss of life in Venezuela, which she said has become a focus of conflict that the international community should pay attention to. She criticised this destructive approach by the United States and its Western allies, supporting the opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido and including the possibility of military action, which could cause serious damage not only to Venezuela, but also to its neighbours. For its part, Russia is seeking a means to promote dialogue between the government and the opposition, and could itself take part as a mediator. Russia is not the only one promoting talks. China is also talking about encouraging direct contact between the opposition and the legitimate constitutional government of Nicolás Maduro.
En favor de lograr un formato internacional para facilitar el diálogo.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Groups representing victims of the El Mozote massacre say more exhumations are expected to happen soon as experts continue to investigate its impact nearly 4 decades later. More on that in this report.
The human rights organizations representing the victims of the El Mozote massacre have announced that new exhumations are expected to take place. The experts also say that the investigators in charge of the case will be responsible for researching how the massacre impacted the social and economic organization of the community.
This massacre has been investigated for several years, since the 90s. During this time, more than 350 bodies have been found. Most of them have been identified. The new exhumations will be carried out in an area where a family of 7 was buried, 5 of them minors. This shows how the massacre was systematic and coordinated by the military to target civilians. Forensic experts have found these attacks targeted mainly minors.
One representative from the organization representing the victims of El Mozote explained how the investigators were chosen and spoke about life in the area of El Mozote.
Both the defendants and the accused in this process presented their choice of investigators. Some were accepted, some were not. Most of the experts presented by the accused were not accepted because they could protect their interests. The ones that were presented were almost all accepted. Among them are 2 anthropology experts who are experts on the life of the El Mozote community at the time of the massacre.
On January 29th, 2 campesinos found bones while working the land. These human remains are thought to belong to Maria de la Paz Pereira, who was executed by the Salvadorian military, along her husband and 5 children. The massacre was carried out on December 10, 1981, during a military action known as Operation Rescue, and it was supported by several military units. Several witnesses have said that during the attack on El Mozote, every member of the community was arrested, including children.
The UN Commission Against Impunity has resumed its operation in Guatemala. This comes after President Jimmy Morales ousted the Anti-Corruption Commission in January. Staff acknowledges that it was a risky decision because there's a lack of protection due to the government's decision. But the commission will now resume monitoring judicial proceedings. Social organizations, education unions, and other movements are marching in the Colombian capital, Bogotá, urging Iván Duque's government to fix the country's massive education deficit. Paula Fernandez has the details.
We are here in the western part of the capital where members of the education sector have gathered since early on Thursday morning to protest against various issues. The main one, however, focuses on the financial deficit the education sector has suffered. It's a deficit, they say, that is about $25.5 million. Another issue people here are demonstrating for is the implementation of the peace agreement regarding the murder of social leaders. They are calling on the government to put an end to this genocide. Different social organizations, movements, and workers' unions are also strongly rejecting the U.S. intervention in Venezuela, especially imposed by the economic sanctions. Protesters are currently marching on the main streets towards the Education Ministry. There, they will hand over their demands to President Iván Duque. That details 6 different points. They demand that President Duque find a solution to cover the huge deficit which the public education sector is suffering from. They also ask for a solution regarding the health care of educators and better education budgets for public schools and universities, especially in the Magdalena, Nariño, and Choco departments.
Thank you, Paola, for your report. More violent clashes have been reported between protesters and the police in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. At least 1 person died during day 7 of demonstrations demanding the resignation of President Jovenel Moïse. And at least 7 people have died since the wave of protests began last Thursday. Protesters accuse the president of breaking his promises and increasing poverty in the country. Jamaica is on the path to economic independence, with recovery exceeding budget targets. Governor General Sir Patrick Allen delivered the news during his traditional throne speech at the ceremonial opening of Parliament.
Jamaica is on a path to economic independence. In that regard, international partners have commended Jamaica's performance. The agency also upgraded the country's policies and programs that enable a stable macroeconomic environment. Cabinet also approved the establishment of an independent fiscal council for Jamaica.
Jamaica's Governor General also says the island will play its role in ensuring that Brexit negotiations are successfully concluded so as to maintain the country's strong partnership with the EU.
Even as the United Kingdom prepares to exit the European Union in the coming weeks, the government has been ardently engaged with the rest of CARIFORUM in working towards the conclusion of an economic partnership agreement with the UK that mirrors the acquis of the current agreement with the EU, preserving preferential terms for trade in goods and in services.
The police service in Trinidad and Tobago has been put on red alert following a series of murders and gang-related activities. Officers have already begun carrying out raids in crime hotspots across the country. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith says he raised law enforcement's response to the highest level in a bid to return law and order.
Now move from amber to red. This must not be seen in any way for the public to be fearful. What we are doing is stepping up what is required to ensure that you are safe and secure. So there's a concept of operations that is nationwide, and whilst that state remains, we believe that there may be a perceived threat, and the perceived threat has nothing to do with, the only thing it has to do is based on one or two specific individuals. I refer to them as punks, thieves, parasites, cockroaches, have continued to try to destabilize our country and to prevent our citizens from having a safe and secure society. We will continue at this level until we peg them back and let them know exactly that no gang in any part of this country, no turf, no street, no community belongs to them, that gives them the authority that they could put hits on persons.
The National Union of Mine Workers of South Africa has said it will challenge plans by the country's largest gold producer to retrench over 6,000 workers. Sibanye Gold Mining announced that it will soon embark on a restructuring exercise, which will, among other things, include cutting thousands of jobs. The unions have, however, vowed to oppose any measures that will lead to job losses.
We are worried that it comes to us through the media that Sibanye is intending to retrench plus minus 5,000 people. However, it's our duty to fight against retrenchments. Should we be given the official notice that they intend to retrench people, we will sit around the table and tell them why it is not right to retrench these people.
And after more than 1 week, 7 bodies have been retrieved from the Gloria coal mine in Middelburg, east of South Africa's capital. 22 people are believed to have gone down the mine shaft before a massive gas explosion occurred underground. Several people had entered the unused mine on February 6th to steal copper wires that supply electricity for lighting and ventilation. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has denied allegations made by a former party official that he worked as an apartheid government spy in the 1970s. Former ANC chairperson Terror Lakota claimed that Ramaphosa made a deal with the government in 1974 to become an informer in order to avoid a long prison sentence on the infamous Robben Island. Ramaphosa admitted that the apartheid police had asked him to work for them, but that he rejected the offer.
It's either you cooperate with them, you give evidence against your comrades, or you become an askari and go and kill your comrades, or you become a paid agent. I did not do any of the 3 things that they wanted. Not at all. Not at all. And when they released me for the last time, they then said, we want you to work with us. And I still remember who it was. It was Major Haystack. He said, we want you to work with us. And I said, I will never agree to work with you and betray my people.
An arrest warrant has been issued for Nigeria's suspended Chief Justice after he failed to appear for trial. Walter Onogen is facing corruption charges. He had been ordered to appear before the tribunal on February 5th, but he did not turn up Onugan was suspended by President Muhammadu Buhari last month, pending a verdict on his alleged violation of wealth declaration rules. He denies the charges and claims to be a victim of political witch hunt. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Migrant rights groups in the U.S. are criticizing Democrats in Congress over their border deal with President Donald Trump. The deal is an attempt to avoid a government shutdown before Friday's deadline. Democrats didn't agree to give Trump the $5.7 billion he wanted for the border wall, but it would give him $1.37 billion to build 55 miles of barriers. It will also reportedly increase the migrant detention capacity. Migrants' rights groups say that in supporting the deal, Democrats are simply reinforcing Trump's policies. Leaders of Turkey, Russia, and Iran have once again met to discuss how to put an end to Syria's long-lasting war. Ahead of the meeting, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said there's still a lot of uncertainty over the planned withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Russia and Iran both back the Syrian government, while Turkey supports the rebels. But as a sign of cooperation, they all agreed to start joint patrols to control radical groups in Syria's Idlib province that remains the hotspot of the conflict. And Turkish authorities believe the body of slain former Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi may have been burned by his killers. According to a police report seen by a state news agency, the Saudi consulate in Istanbul has a gas and wood furnace that can reach up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. That is enough to destroy any DNA traces. Khashoggi, a critic of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, was killed in the consulate in October of last year. Now let's take a look at some other stories from around the world.
Russia's miracle baby, Ivan Fokin, has been discharged from hospital after 6 weeks of treatment. 1-year-old Ivan came to the world's attention when he was rescued from under the rubble of a collapsed residential building in freezing temperatures on the 1st of January. The family have been given a new apartment by the government where Ivan will celebrate his first birthday on Saturday.
Vanya was treated by the whole country. It was a teamwork of rescuers, clinic staff, consultant physicians, and everyone else. But only Vanya, this human, is the biggest hero. It's such a joy to see him in this condition.
12-year-old Fatima Koba is displaced by the war in Yemen. She was living under a tree and weighed only 10 kg when she was brought into a malnutrition clinic. Fatima has highlighted the plight of millions who are on the brink of famine, according to the United Nations. Dr. Makia Al-Aslami, who is treating her, says she's expecting more malnourished people to come through her door. This month alone, she's treating 40 pregnant malnourished women. Fatima says her family were forced to flee when the Saudi-led bombardment started in 2015. A British teenager who travelled to Syria to marry an Islamic State militant now says she wants to return to the UK. Pregnant Shamima Begum told the Times newspaper how she became the bride of a Dutch IS fighter 10 days after her arrival in Raqqa, the capital of the self-proclaimed caliphate. Begum says she fled Syria 2 weeks ago to keep her unborn child safe after losing 2 children to illness.
People in North Korea have celebrated the Kim Jong-il Flower Festival. Kim Jong-il is a large red flower named after the second North Korean leader, Kim Jong-il. The festival is part of a series of events held to celebrate his birthday on the 16th of February. And in conservative Afghanistan, Valentine's Day has becoming increasingly popular. Fresh red roses and gifts are openly for sale in shops in the capital, Kabul. Young people in cities like this celebrate the day. This is in a traditional society that largely views the celebration as a Western concept, contrary to the Islamic religion. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
The life is full of